What is the most genius way to cheat on an exam you have ever seen? Smart kid sits up front. Beneath him is a tile floor. The tile under the front left leg of his desk is answer A. The one to the right of that is B. The one down from A is C. And the one beneath B is D. Smart kid uses his left leg to point to the answer. Now the question numbers. Question 1 is when smart kid coughs, which is synchronized to the class clock. Each minute is a new question answer. After a 20 minutes exam, 20 questions are answered by moving his foot. What's in it for the smart kid? On an online exam, I saw someone take the whole exam without even touching his computer. The mouse was moving and everything. Turns out he set up a remote desktop and had someone take it from home. Amazing. And if the teacher found out, he could have just said he was moving the mouse with telekinesis. Completely foolproof. That's telekinesis, Kyle. Had a buddy take an online course. Wrote to the company that did the book materials for the course saying he was a professor and wanted to use their materials for the course. They sent him all the answers and such. Brilliant. Best one I've heard of was a guy who was in band. Got a copy of the test for another class from someone who had the class earlier in the day. It was multiple choice. He transposed all the answers, A, B, C or D, into musical notes. When they had to clear their decks before the test, he sat all his stuff on the ground with the sheet music on top. He had it divided into a specific number of notes per measure, so it was easy to find the one he was looking for. For some reason, a school had the French test take place on a computer and the browser that was installed was Chrome, and Chrome has an auto-translate feature. A girl I know wrote all the answers on her thigh, then wore tights to the exam. When she stretched the tights she could see the answers but then let it go and cover it up. My genius way of cheating was to write the answers on a tiny piece of paper. I wasn't the most original 13-year-old. I was also very klutzy. Just after a Japanese test I dropped said little piece of paper on the ground. A very funny boy that I had a huge crush on picked it up. His eyes went wide when he saw what was on it. We weren't really friends. We were young enough that we didn't really have mixed gender friend groups yet. But this boy joked with me in class a lot. I looked at him pleadingly and said please don't tell. He smiled and screwed the piece of paper up. He then proceeded to eat it. Swallowed the ducker whole. Secret safe with me, he said. As a 13-year-old, it was the single most genius thing I'd ever seen. I swear I fell in love in that moment. One class I had, we were given the essay questions in advance so we knew what to study. During the test, we had to write the essays in class in blue books. I would write the essays in different blue books before the test and bring them in blank ones to class. At the end, I'd just switch out the completely filled out ones for the blank ones. It was such a hard class that I still never got a 100% on any of them. I think this isn't exactly cheating, but all the answers were on the test. Somehow I was the only one who figured it out. High school biology test, 10 questions and all multiple choice. I knew the answer for 6 questions, so as I was trying to figure out the other questions something come to my attention. All the alternatives were like that. A, Z, B, X, C, C dot, D, V, E, B. All the correct answers had a dot at the end of the sentence. Teacher told me this one. This kid was one of those kids who hardly showed up to class, so it was a surprise he showed up for the final. The kid asked to put down the window at the beginning of class because it was warm in the room, so my professor let him. The kid scribbled on his paper for 30 minutes and then asked to go to the bathroom, which my professor allowed. The kid came back and finished the test and then left. The twist in all of this? The kid had dropped a copy of the test out of the window to his friend down below, who went to the lounge and took the exam. They then met up in the bathroom and the kid took the test from his friend and went back to class, wrote his name on it and then turned it in. The only fault in this plan was that another professor happened to be looking in that direction as soon as the test was dropped out of the window, and proceeded to foil the whole plan. Back in 1999 or so when scientific calculators were newish, I think, I got my own rather than use the school ones. They would check our pockets and our stuff to make sure we didn't have a cheat sheet. They would check our calculators to make sure we didn't have anything written. However, I had a cheat sheet on paper on the inside of the calculator's cover which fit behind. So I showed my screen and that it was blank, but no one removed the lid. So I had to slide up the lid about an inch and had written everything down as tiny as I could. Cheated and got away with it. Not really cheating, but I heard about a class where the final was so comprehensive the professor told the class it was entirely open book and they could bring in anything for reference they could carry, with the notable exception being a laptop with Wi-Fi. One guy apparently carried in his older brother on his back who was a TA for a higher level class in the same subject. Yeah, he got an A. Technically not cheating is the best kind of not cheating. There's a story at Caltech where a professor gave a take-home exam and told students they could only use Feynman, by which he meant they could only use some specific textbook written by Richard Feynman. It just so happened that Richard Feynman was a professor at Caltech at the time, so a student went to the living breathing actual Richard Feynman for help on the exam. Stole this from the internet. We were allowed one 3x5 note card for the final, so I filled it up in blue ink with tiny writing, then wrote over the top of that in red ink, and brought a clear piece of red and blue plastic with me. Teacher thought it was clever and allowed it. The only way this could be any more genius is if you wore those old 3D glasses. Then you would only have to close one eye or the other to properly see the notes. Student gets sent to the nurse for crossed eyes. I store facts inside my head. Risky. You ever got caught? I confessed to a teacher that I did this and he recommended me to store more facts in my brain. It's almost like my school wants me to cheat this way. I have a full tattoo sleeve on my right arm and both of my hands done. When I had an upcoming test I hadn't studied for, I would write little keywords to make myself remember things inside my tattoos, and I'd write them in a similar color to the ink, so unless you were looking insanely close, you couldn't see them. Also, in high school my buddy and I had a system where he would signal what question he needed help with and then I would hold up 1-4 fingers for AD. Prison Break Season 1 IRL. Most of the time I didn't see it. I only saw the times people got caught. For me it was when online classes started being a thing. Prof told us the system would check if you had the notes open in another tab and would auto close any of the same instance of the notes so you couldn't have the notes and the test open at the same time. It actually did close the other tab's windows to my surprise. Nothing stopped me from copying all of the class content into a Word document. After enough of that, I realized I could have the test open in Explorer and have the notes open in Firefox. I used to type my answers into a grid and make the font a size 2 or something. I could fit 50 Spanish translations on the size of a postage stamp more legibly than I could have ever written it. I'd even pass them out to friends. I can actually write this tiny. It's a seldom needed skill. I cheated a lot in high school, but never once I got to college. I never decided to stop, but once I got to college I just experienced what real learning was like and loved it. But I have some good HS stories. In French class, we had to recite a paragraph in French for an exam. I went up to the board earlier in the day and wrote my entire paragraph in phonetics, not French, on the front chalkboard. When it came time to recite our paragraph, each student stood up and spoke their paragraph to the teacher as she faced the class, with the chalkboard behind her. When it came to me, I simply stood and read to her what I had written on the chalkboard behind her. Then when she went back to her desk to record my grade, I casually walked to the front of the class and erased the chalkboard. Everyone in the class watched this unfold. No one ratted me out. Another time in typing class, I realized that if I moved the window of the test program on the desktop and kept the window hovering, then nothing I typed would be entered into the program until I took my finger off the mouse button. That is, I could type a sentence while the test window hovered and then, when I stopped moving the test window, the sentence would input into the program insanely quickly. So I would type the first sentence or so using this method to get an inhumanly high WPM score for those sentences, and then I would take forever to type the remaining sentences. Once the test completed it would average how quickly I typed each sentence and I was able to produce a high, but humanly possible, WPM score. Another time a teacher had us do daily assignments in a journal, which he then graded one by one on the last day during the class period. I never did these assignments. Instead, On grading day, after he graded the first person's journal and handed it back to him, I asked the student for their journal, stripped it of any identifying or noticeably unique information, while the teacher was cycling through grading the rest of the class, and then handed in the other student's journal as my own to be graded last. He didn't notice. One last one, although this might not qualify as cheating. In my HS, if you missed too many days of school, then you had to attend Saturday school to make those days up. But Saturday school was great. It was only half day and they just let you sit quietly doing whatever you wanted. I fondly remember reading Ferdinand de Saussures' course in general linguistics during these Saturday sessions. I realized one day that I could attend every Saturday school to build up excess school days on the attendance ledger, and then skip big chunks of normal days later in the semester. I really regret all of this now, even if I admire the ingenuity of my younger self. The result of all this cheating was that I graduated HS without learning a lot of information I wish I had. The biggest victim of cheating is yourself. I am a philosophy professor now. I teach ethics. Edit. One more. When I was in the army and deploying to invade Iraq, I forgot my glasses for the eye exams. Had I failed the test that day, I would have had to come back another day and it might have ultimately delayed my deployment to the war. But as I was taking the eye exam and struggling, I suddenly felt the hand of the soldier behind me in line gently caressing my back. It took me a few moments before I realized he was tracing the letters with his finger on my back. Passed the exam with flying colors. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos and don't forget to like the video if you've enjoyed it.